Welcome to the season is almost here edition of Sharing Sox. I'm Southside Sox duty geezer Leigh Allan. With me, my son and West Coast correspondent Will, who is where all the real baseball excitement is. One thing, the Dodgers and Padres played two games and split the series in Seoul, which I was glad to see has a dome on their stadium. Because I was thinking, how the hell can you play in Seoul in the middle of March? I looked up, it was 27 degrees. Uh, so good they
Wow,
have
I
a
didn't
dome.
even realize that. Yeah. Yeah, it was they split the two games. Jake Cronenworth's glove is either going to go down as one of those famous bad omens in baseball history or a famous good omen, and we don't know yet because obviously there is other news swirling around the Los Angeles Dodgers,
Yeah.
which we won't get into at this point. I think even reporting on it, we're at that part of the process
No,
where
I
you're
mean, I think
reporting
I
on
think we're
something you don't know about.
I think we are two people who know nothing more than whatever ESPN reported yesterday about Shohei Ohtani and his interpreter and hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. And anyhow, we don't know.
Yeah.
Let's go to Chicago and we don't know either. We don't know
So
what's going
there's
on with the White Sox either.
theoretically there was $4.5 million involved. Now let's go over to a team that's not going to make $4.5 million this year, the
But
Chicago
whose
White
owner
Sox.
wants taxpayers to give him a couple billion.
Yeah,
So we've got that going for us. White Sox, I still have the worst record in either the Cactus or Grapefruit League, which
that's
is
right.
meaningless because if you look at the other teams with really bad records, I think Houston is one of them. It's the way it is always. Kansas City's got a great record. That just happens every year at spring training, and it depends how the team decides to handle its pitching, decides how much they want to play regulars by double A or single A players, that kind of thing. So it's not particularly meaningful, except it's about the kind of record we expect for the
Yeah, I
regular
mean,
season.
I'm always a huge supporter of the phrase that spring training doesn't really matter, and it still really doesn't in a lot of ways. However, when you look at who's playing and then who would be continuing to be playing, this is not a situation where a great team is experimenting with putting in young
Yeah.
guys, and this is a situation where we've got only a few major leaguers on our team. So we are losing two major leaguers and minor leaguers in spring training, and I don't see a world where that pattern breaks.
Yeah, and then that same idea of spring training doesn't matter. You look at Luis Robert, who's hitting. Let me see. It's like 150 or something. It's way down there. Uh, oh, yeah, his on base percentage is 200. He's hitting 158. There you go. Okay, come on. Luis Robert is not going to hit 158. He's a tremendous baseball player. Spring training doesn't count. But then you've got to look at, say, Gavin Sheets and Andrew Vaughn, who are both hitting well over 300, go, well, that doesn't really count either. You're not
Exactly.
counting Luis on the downside. You're not counting them on the upside. You have to go that way.
Correct.
I think they all need something. Luis obviously has a problem. I don't know what it is. I'm sure he'll overcome it, but something's going wrong, or he's experimenting. Who knows?
Yeah, I
The
mean, I
one
think the chances of Luis Robert hitting 158 are zero, and I think the chances of Gavin Sheets hitting
I
over
think the chance of
300 are
hitting
zero.
258 or zero. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
One that I find bothersome, you go to this White Sox never tell anybody anything. Eloy was absolutely crushing the ball. I mean, crushing. Its OPS was like 1.3 or something, just absolutely lacing everything. Then he didn't play for 4 games, 4 games over 3 days because there was a split squad in there, but he didn't play in any of them. And we were at the stage where the regulars play at least every other day. And it's typical to be playing every other day at that stage. So, but he didn't play for all those days. Since he came back, he's zilch. I mean, he struck out almost every time. He's no, not almost, that's not fair, but he struck out half the time and is barely hitting anything else. So I wonder, does something happen? Goodness knows he's a little injury prone.
I
Um,
mean, if he was hitting the ball, which you're right. I mean, early in spring training, it was kind of him and Otani were your two
oh, I mean, it's
biggest bats. It was
crushing
it was
everything.
unbelievable. And then he disappears for 3 days. essentially,
when
and then he comes back and can't hit. Obviously, we're missing information here, and that's very common for the White
very White
Sox.
Sox.
Yeah.
Uh, so
It's
so
not a
that's
good sign,
discouraging.
though. I'll tell you that. It's a very, very bad sign. And, I
It's
don't see a
I don't
world
like
where,
that sign.
yeah, I don't see a world where he comes back after those 3 games off and is bad all of a sudden because every pitcher he's faced has figured out all of a sudden a pitch that they know he can't hit.
Well,
Um,
I think one of the things that they talked about was he had last winter, did at home in the Dominican Republic, and somebody, I think it was a grandfather, an older person said, you need to change the way your hands are. White Sox never noticed it.
of
And what they're
course,
trying to do is keep him from hitting all the balls on the ground. And that's been his negative side. He hits the ball as hard as anybody in baseball, but he hits it heavily on the ground, which is
right.
not that helpful if the opposing defense is any good. Uh, so anyhow, they changed his hands, and he came back with changed hands. It was clobbering, but that to me suggests that could change what his strengths and weaknesses are. I don't know what the change was or how it went, but if say his weakness had been he couldn't hit balls pitched inside under his hands, and by switching how his hands are, all of a sudden he can clobber those. Maybe it means he can't get the outside corner as well as he. I have no idea what it is, but I'm just it changes things,
And
and
if
it
it
changes
was,
things both positively and negatively. So the pitchers learn, oh, he can't hit low and outside. That's where we're going. Uh, who knows?
I just feel like there's so much sample size at this point on Eloy that we have to be dealing with an injury here. Um,
I, I,
it makes
yeah,
no sense to come out that hot and then all of a sudden have nothing and then
and
have
have the
three
days
days where
off.
you don't
Why?
show
Why
up.
the? Why those days off? It just seems like it could be his hand hurts. He's got a little plantar fight. It could be anything in this world. It, it could be he got an earache, but something happened. It's negative,
And
and
of
we hope that
course,
that
the White
moves on.
Sox are not going, they're going to be even more secretive about something like that with Eloy right now because I'm sure there is hope that he would be unloaded. So they are not going to make public
Oh yeah,
injury
he's
statements.
obviously a trade deadline guy, but there'll be a lot of sample size before that comes to pass. Other guys, Yuan is hitting great, and what you have to hope with Yuan is he stays healthy. I mean, that's part
Yeah,
of the Eloy thing too. But
stays
he's
healthy
hitting
and
great.
stays motivated as well.
Yes, and it's going to be hard to stay motivated with this team. It's going to be very hard. The top hitter on the team is Mark Payton.
Love him, love his work.
I mean, some of these things are strange. Some of the new guys, I mean, are hitting well. Nicky Lopez is doing fine. And I'm a Nicky Lopez
Yeah,
fan. I always have been. I like the way he plays baseball.
yeah,
And
for
it's not
sure.
that's not just because he went to high school where you went to college. No, I like Nicky Lopez. He's a great defensive player. Paul DeYoung is hitting close to 300. He's got a 900 OPS. That's
Yeah,
not going to last. There's no way that's going to last. But if he hits well, he's had years when he's hit, a 270 hitter or maybe a 700 OPS. Get the defense and he plays.
this is a great opportunity for a scorching hot take that I'm just going to have to put out there. You say that Paul DeJong's 900 OPS can't last. I'm going to say it does.
Okay, Dion, do it for Will. Uh, Meanwhile, some of the problem areas stay. Dominic Fletcher, who really Chris Getz was suggesting, well, he's got the inside to be the right fielder. He's hitting 159 with a 465 OPS. And people, well, he hit 301 for Arizona last year. He hit 301 for Arizona last year after hitting 450, 460 in the middle of May. The rest of the
Right.
year, he hit about 150. I mean, they sent him down, I think, and brought back up, but he hit about 150. Whatever pitchers found out about him in the middle of May last year, he can't do it. Whether it's high heat or you know curveballs, sliders, whatever, he can't do it.
Yeah, I was reading that same thing about his hot start and then his brutal regression. I don't really have a lot of hope uh, in the Dominic Fletcher camp. I,
No,
I just don't
I
see
think
it.
our right field emptiness is just going to stay there. The other
I
guys that they've
think we
got,
should. I think we should consider the possibility of only playing two outfielders. I know it's not conventional baseball, but if they'll let you have like a fifth infielder or something like that, I think it's something we should really mull over here.
Mark Payton's hitting well. He's 32 years old. Kevin Pillar is hitting decently. He's 35. There is no reason for this team to play a starter that's over 30 years old at this point. There's just none. The season is gone. You want to have young people who are coming up who are going to be good
Yeah.
for next season is probably also gone, but at least maybe they'll be good next year. Definitely want to be good by 2026. There's no reason to play old guys. But if you look at somewhat younger guys, the hottest hitter by far of potential right fielders is Gavin Sheets.
Right.
We cannot have, I mean, Getz has made this big deal about the defense, and I'm glad. I mean, we've harped on defense ever since we've had this this podcast, and I've harped on it my whole life. I was thrilled when Getz said we're going for defense, and he did it. He did it with the Young and Lopez. Uh, in right field, it's I don't know what he's going to do. Brett Phillips is a great defender, but he can't hit a lick. He's like a career 100 something hitter. He's hitting 222 in the spring against minor leaguers. He's just
Here's the thing, though, and we know this from experience because I totally agree with you. There's no reason anybody over 30 should be starting for this team. But we have been at White Sox games in September in years where they've already lost 85, 90 games. And they have guys like that still out on the field. The organization seems to have a complete non understanding, didn't say that well, but they do not understand that when you are trying to rebuild, you need to play the guys that you are trying to rebuild. They just put these guys out there. It's why we always are stuck with guys like Adam LaRoche, Yonder Alonso, John Jay, like all these guys who are past their ability to play as actual competitive major leaguers, yet they're on the field when we have guys waiting in the wings. And I realize right now that the guys waiting in the wings for us are not
they're
exactly
not very good.
something to
They're
be
not,
excited about.
There's a reason they sent Oscar Colas down early, and he got sent down fast in the first group. There's something about him. I don't know if he's a head. I guess he's a head case, but that's total guess. But obviously, management doesn't like him, and
Yeah.
he doesn't produce either. So that's a double. But and I again go to he didn't learn fundamentals when he played in Japan. You can't not learn fundamentals in Japan. You have to.
Yeah. No.
But speaking of old guys, now we're recording this on the 21st, Thursday the 21st. So 1 week from opening day. They yesterday sent Corey Lee down. Corey Lee's having a great spring. So they still got Chucky Robinson in the major league camp, but Chucky seems less likely than Corey to be kept on the team at any time. So it looks like they're planning to keep Maldonado and Stassi as the two catchers. The two guys are the two old guys. I understand very well. I think it's absolutely excellent that you keep one old, experienced, defensive-oriented catcher with your young pitching staff to guide them as
Sure.
best that he can. Absolutely
Sure.
understand one of them. Uh, Maldonado's really suffering defensively even last year. I think he's a catcher and he's old. It happens. It's a rough life. Uh, but I understand keeping one. I do not understand keeping two. Why you don't all keep one of the old guys to be your father figure and a young guy to get some practice at the major league level. Yes, Leigh on the major league level, I think he hit 077 last fall when he was brought up. But he was hitting very well this spring. And actually the
And you
catching
got
game.
to try something. You got to try. I'm like
Now, if
listening
they
to you
keep
talk
Chucky,
about this.
fine, but that's a surprise.
Listening to you talk about this, I'm having like an existential breakdown right now. We are sitting here talking about a major league team during our supposed championship window, and you just listed the names Lee, Robinson, Maldonado, and Stassi. I can't believe this conversation's real. This is like a nightmare. This is a fever dream. This was supposed to be the time, and here we are. You're listing guys that I wouldn't want on my single A team. This is just insane that this is where the White Sox are. And maybe I'm overreacting, but I don't think I am. I just can't believe there's so much fury inside of me. I'm trying not to punch through my computer screen because this is so pathetic and so disappointing. I'm like, why are we talking about these guys? Why are we? We're sitting here. We're just sitting around chatting about guys that are going to get us 117 losses. This is which is worth talking about because that could be historical. But how did we get here? And we also know how we got here, which makes this even more frustrating. But the fact that we're here and this is what we're dealing with. We're still talking about Gavin Sheets. We're still talking about Andrew Vaughn. We're talking about these catchers. We're talking about no prospects essentially of any value. This organization.
Well, now Colson Montgomery. Let's not be unfair to Colson Montgomery and Brian Ramos.
But who we hadn't mentioned yet, though. So we had not talked about anyone worth talking about yet. So I am just, my mind is just blown. You look around the league and you think about how, man, this was our time. This was supposed to be the window. We don't have most of those guys anymore. The ones we do have are barely hanging in and will probably be gone. This was the most pathetic run for a title maybe that I've ever seen in baseball.
I believe we were supposed to talk to our former general manager after the parade. I don't know if it was the St. Patrick's Day parade or the gay parade.
Yeah,
the little band that marches around our neighborhood on every holiday. I don't know. We've been talking position players. We need to get to pitchers.
Well, let's take a break real quick. We will take a quick break. And certainly the position player talk was not overwhelmingly, inspiring. But I bet the pitching rotation is something. I think you've been saving this because the pitching rotation is not just going to be Garrett Crochet and 4 random names pulled from a hat. I think you're about to break some really big news here. So hang in there. We'll be right back on Sharing Sox. Welcome back to Sharing Sox. We went over the offensive future question mark of the Chicago White Sox. Let's talk about pitching. So we know now that Garrett Crochet is going to be our opening day starter. I've actually gotten to watch a little bit of Crochet in spring training, including Ohtani's first at bat, striking him out. Crochet has looked very, very, very good. I really am kind of, maybe it's the thing I'm most impressed by is the fact that we've been able to get Crochet back and get him into a form where I think he actually could be quite excellent. Now, I have major concerns about him switching to being a every 5th day starter. We have no idea what that will entail. Who knows if this is just an early thing and then he goes back to the bullpen, but I don't know how we could put him in the bullpen because we don't have any starters. I'm just not sure what the plan is with this Garrett Crochet thing, but he has been a bright spot of this spring training, and I think he's kind of an interesting starter.
And the other really interesting one, and it's the same problem situation as Michael Soroka. He's been terrific. Just had a game where I think he gave up 1 run in 4 innings, and that was maybe some bad fielding or something. Soroka's been terrific. Soroka 5 years ago was a great pitcher, and then he hasn't pitched for 3 years. He and Crochet, great. Those will be your 1 and 2 starters. Very good, very good.
Yes.
Neither one has pitched much of anything in recent years. And I go to Steve Stone on this. I'm not trying to be the expert. Steve Stone says you can't stretch a pitcher out that much. And we mean not vertical stretching of 4 innings instead of 3 or 5 innings instead of 4, horizontal of how many innings they pitch over a season. And particularly, as he says, how many pitches you throw that count, that really matter. So the stress is there. You can't do it. And I'm sure people can find exceptions. Say, so-and-so went from probably Verlander went from no innings pitched to 285, but there are exceptions to anything. But basically, you can't
Yeah.
do it. And the question is, are they going to wear out Crochet and Soroka
Yes.
in the first few months? And I think that's a
I
real danger.
already got the answer. It's yes. It's you don't. I mean, that's what I was saying when I was saying I don't know what the plan is with Crochet because I just don't see you being able to make him an every fifth day starter after not pitching. Soroka, same circumstance, hasn't been pitching. That
The Braves
162
let
game
Soroka
season.
go, and the Braves are pretty good at evaluating personnel.
Yes, and pitchers especially. So I I mean I have huge concerns. I think Crochet is going to probably do pretty well early on, but what happens if you get to July and there's nothing in the tank? I mean, this dude just has not pitched innings at a pro level at anywhere near that quantity. And Soroka has done it in the past, but hasn't done it in a long time. I mean, it is really, really hard to be consistent to a 162 game season, even as a pitcher who's pitching every fifth day. It can be even harder as a pitcher to maintain that because the arm just wears
It
down
just
and wears
goes.
down
It
and
just
wears
goes.
down. And that's not any particular player's fault. It's just how the human body works. And I just don't see a world where we can have Crochet as an opening day starter unless the plan is that he's not going to throw more than 2 or 3 innings and have any chance of him being around in August. I just don't see a route that says we can have Crochet go out there as a starting pitcher, hoping to get as many innings as possible every time, and then him still being around in August with any sort of liveliness in that arm. And the same goes for Soroka. He's a solid guy, but I just don't see a world where you can expect 6 innings from this guy or 5 innings from this guy until September. It doesn't make sense in terms of how the arm works and how you have
I
to
threw
build
out
up that stamina.
my proposal again on Dave Fletcher's old plan of the 3-3-3, where you have 9 pitchers, you go 3 innings each every third day, and then you got enough relievers to take care of them when they're in trouble. I think this is a team for would really actually work. It sounds like a joke, but it would work because it got no real starters.
Well,
Eric Fetty,
you know who would do it too if they were in this same situation as Tampa. I actually don't think it's a crazy idea. I think it's a really good idea when you don't have any starters, and we really don't have any starters. Uh,
but we have
I
an absolute load of mid-range pitchers.
exactly,
Most of
exactly.
our people who are going to be in the bullpen are guys who have pitched multiple. Tanner Banks, he's good for 3 innings. Yeah, that kind of thing. Toussaint, I don't know if he's good for any, but if he's good for any, he's good for 3 or 4. You know, so anyhow,
We have a lot of guys who could throw 3 innings, and we have no guys who can throw seven. So I don't understand trying to use the traditional starter model when you just don't have major league starters.
Eric Fetty has not had a good spring. And
Of
Fetty, the
course.
question was, did he suddenly go from being horrible, his career ERA well over 5, no year ever with an ERA under 5 in 6 years with Washington, and then a superstar in Korea? And was that because he came up with a new pitch and a change of delivery, which is what it said, or it's because he was in Korea? No, kind of finding out. Chris
Yeah.
Flexen has not had a bad spring, but Flexen really does not have a good history at all. Nick Nick Nastrini is not on the 40-man roster, but he's been really good. And the question is, do you move him into the rotation instead of some of these guys who are already on the 40-man and have more experience? I mean, I think Nastrini has much experience above AA, maybe a couple innings. But he's looked good. Uh,
I mean, I'm spiraling again because here we are, and we're talking about our season depending on Soroka because next we have Fetty and Flexen. I mean, this is comical. This is like if you went through a collection of baseball cards and your buddy said, "Make a team out of the cards you're going to throw away." Like this is kind of the roster and rotation that we're dealing with. I I don't know if any of those guys could possibly be starters still in May. I don't see it happening. I don't see any of these guys being successful major league starters for an entire season. There's not a one on that list that I think can throw a season as a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. There's not one, and that's not discrediting Crochet's abilities. I think Crochet could be absolutely
Or
stellar,
Sorokas.
or Sorokas. I think they could be stellar in very controlled sample sizes of innings because they're just not there yet, as we said before. And then these other guys, they're on their way out. They're on their way out. They've got one foot out the door in terms of Major League Baseball.
Well, not the stream. I mean, he's a young guy coming up if they
Yeah,
use him.
but exactly. So that's one where I would say, but they probably won't use him
Yeah.
because they have no clue what they're doing. They're probably going to trade for somebody absurd. They're probably going to bring Jamie Moyer out of retirement at age
Hey,
65.
don't knock Jamie Moyer. He probably still pitch.
I would rather see Jamie Moyer come back and pitch for the White Sox than see any of these other guys pitch. I love Jamie Moyer. And he's probably still got that rocket 76 mile an hour fastball that he can just mow guys down with. I'm a big Jamie Moyer fan.
Well,
But
speaking of crafty
this
lefties, Mark Burley is available.
Burley is available. I think
And that would probably double your ticket sales for the year.
yes, from 2 to 4.
Speaking of, I wanted to bring this in before we go. We're a week from opening day. I pretended I was buying tickets right on the White Sox site. So we're not talking secondary market or anything, right? Opening market right there. And to see opening day, because you and I have been to several opening days, they're sellouts.
Yeah,
Opening day is a sellout. I don't think it was last year. Well, it wasn't, but normally sellouts. You can't get a ticket. Well, I looked through the grid. Now in the outfield, and it's going to be a cold day, although it may make it up to 50, the forecast says now. It's better than it was. But the outfield was
oh,
pretty well sold. The outfield was heavily sold. And I'm guessing that people wanted to be in the sun if there was going to be any. That's a good move on opening day. It was
yeah,
heavily
yeah.
sold. There were just isolated tickets here and there. The upper deck was kind of typical as you'd have midseason. The first rows were sold heavily, and the back half was completely unsold. Very typical. What was not typical were the lower box seats, lower deck, not in the outfield, and the not between the bases, but between
The like
the foul poles.
the
Uh,
117, 118,
yeah, and
149, 148,
and
those sections.
what we saw there, what I saw there, heavily not sold, not even half sold. That's all the tickets that normally go big, especially for something for opening day. Yes, they're probably charging a lot more, but
But they don't
those
charge that much more.
they
Yeah,
don't charge. And those are normally season tickets. A lot of those are season tickets. That's prime season ticket territory. And the tickets unsold all the way through there, at least half unsold.
absolutely.
This,
That I
this
mean, those are
the marketing people
definitely
have their year cut out for. The next game, they're giving away a hoodie, like that one. So they might sell some seats based on that because you need it for a March game in Chicago. That I mean, it's going to be a problem. Jerry's
yeah, I mean,
going to wonder what happened.
I'm looking at StubHub right now as well, our secondary market for opening day. And there are thousands upon thousands of seats available. So not only are they not selling out from the White Sox, but they are not selling through the
So the season
secondhand
tick
market either,
the
which
season
means,
ticket holders are going. Well, of course, so you
yeah,
don't these days. I mean, StubHub now in recent years worked out that deal with MLB, so they're actually MLB's reseller. So the White
right.
Sox can put tickets on StubHub, so they could be selling their own tickets underpriced what they were charging. It's kind of a
And overpriced. Yeah.
yeah. I
It's
mean,
definitely bogus. And I do know that a lot of major league teams are doing it. They are
Oh,
doing
I'm sure the
this
White
ticket
Sox do.
hack. Yeah, yeah. So it's bleak. I mean, I think you're going to see an opening day crowd that is extremely underwhelming, and I think it's just the sign of things to come. I think it's just what it's going to be like for this team in terms of your experience at the ballpark. I think it's going to be incredibly disappointing all year. I expect that there will be a lot of closed concession stands. Um, Maybe they'll start doing some ticket deals late in the year because this is going to be an attendance season for the White Sox
You know,
to forget.
one thing you got to hope that they'll do, and they're so stupid that they don't generally do it. The sales are going to be so bad that they stop this stupid thing that if you buy a ticket in the 500 level, you are never allowed down at the 100 level. Like
Yeah.
you might bring cooties down to the people who paid more for their seats. Now we've been to games where its sales were so low that they closed the upper deck, and I bet that happens a lot during this year, which will be good for
Oh,
people
yeah.
who bought a $10 ticket. Now they get to sit in the $50 seat. I've never seen a problem. I've seen cases where people walk up to somebody who's in their seats, down below because they weren't there at the beginning of the game, and somebody sat there in the fifth row, behind third base or something. Uh, when people come and say, "Oh, you're in our seats," I've never seen anybody go, "No, no." They all just, "Oh, sorry," and then move on to some other empty seat. It's not a
Yeah,
problem.
I mean that technique is it's all about greed as well. It's about greed for numerous reasons, but I would think the main factor there is not wanting to staff ushers at every section. So what they do is they keep people out of the entire concourse so that they don't have to deal with seating issues at each section, which is a money saving tactic for sure in terms of
I'm glad
stadium
they closed. No, that's
operations.
fine that they closed the upper deck. That's a good thing to do. They don't.
No, I mean when the upper deck's open, they keep people out of the lower deck because
Oh,
they don't want to have ushers at every single section of field level checking tickets. It saves them a lot more money to have the one person. You know, when you go up the stairs and then
yeah.
you're about to take the bridge over, there's just the one person who's checking to make sure that you have field level seats.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
if you let everyone in, then you need to have people at every station, every section checking tickets to do that, which is what most baseball stadiums do because it's so disrespectful to the fans to say that you can't go in other areas of the ballpark just because your ticket costs a little less money. They don't even do that at the Dodgers. The Dodgers, you can now go to any section you want. You can't just go sit in the field level seats if you don't have a field level seat, but you can go to the field level concourse. You can get the same food as anybody else. You can go
And your
all throughout the
kids
ballpark.
and your kids can go out during batting practice and try to catch a home run.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
I
because
mean, I did that. I did that as a kid in Cleveland. Uh, it's just stupid. Those kids are the future audience,
yeah.
and to make their experience as bad as you can make it, that's so stupid.
Well, the big one for me for the White Sox was last May. I took some of my castmates from a play I was doing, and they brought their kids. And it was a weekday evening game, and it was Bark in the Park or whatever the White Sox call
Oh,
it,
with the dogs?
with the dogs, where the dogs are out in the outfield section. Well, my friends brought their children. We were up in the 500s, and they were like, hey, the kids want to go see the dogs. So they went down to go see the dogs, and they were turned away because they didn't have a field level ticket. There were maybe 1,000 people in the stadium outside of the dog section. And they didn't let these children who were at their first ever White Sox game go and just see the dogs on the night when the stadium lets you bring your dog. I mean, if that is not absolute evil garbage business practice, I don't know what is. I mean, I was infuriated. And so were my friends. They were basically like, well, this was our one time ever coming here because they were so rude about letting us get to where the dogs are, which is just the outfield. So basically, they're just denied field concourse level. Uh, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. So instead of a kid going, "Hey, remember that time I went with my dad to my first White Sox game? There were all those dogs out there, and we got to see all those dogs, and then we're petting them, we're eating ice cream." Now the kid has a memory of, remember when my dad tried to take me down there to see the dogs, and some stranger told us that I'm not good enough to do that.
Yeah.
It sucks. What you're saying about those kids being the future of baseball, the future in general, but the future of baseball is exactly right. If this isn't a family game, I mean, we talk about this a lot in LA with the Dodgers and families being completely priced out. Wrigley, also a major culprit of pricing out, lower and middle income families. You're by default, you are ending the future of baseball. You are making the decision that kids and families cannot have a great experience here unless they're already wealthy. And then where does their fandom come from? Why would they be a fan of a game where they can't afford to go? Why would they be a fan of a game where they go and they want to pet a dog and a stranger in a green polo says no? Why would they be a fan of a game where they heard that there's corn dogs on level 3 and they won't let you go get your corn dog? This is just common business sense if you're thinking about long term, that you would make these things as family and kid friendly. I mean, there is probably nothing that shaped my life more as a kid than playing baseball with you, going to baseball games with you, being around the game of baseball, talking about the game of baseball, playing baseball with friends in the yard. If we had not been able to do any of these things because of what these teams are doing right now, that wouldn't be the same. And I would not be a baseball fan. We would not be buying tickets every year to baseball games still. Like, these things do matter, how you treat your fans. And I just am seeing a very bleak future for Major League Baseball, who desperately needs to keep fans. Desperately needs to keep fans. I mean, I get that the worldwide appeal of the sport has changed a little bit, but it's not enough to make up for the fact that they are essentially just crapping on middle and lower income families and keeping children out of the ballpark, out of sections of the ballpark. It's just classless. It's very classless. It's tasteless. It's terrible business, and hopefully they have to right this ship at some point because things get so bleak. They actually need to turn to families to help them get back into business here. But yeah, it's crazy, and I hope the White Sox take this year because it's going to be empty the whole year. I hope they do some reflecting this year and figure out, let's get families back in here. Let's get them in here for cheap. Let's get them in here for free. Let's let them go where they want. Let's let kids create fond memories of going to the games with parents, siblings, and make them become lifelong fans of the game. Because without that, baseball is not going to make it. It's not going to make
Oh
it.
man.
Yeah. So that is all the time we have for today on my somewhat depressing, but hopefully hopeful note of the future of baseball. Do you have any final thoughts before we sign off today?
Yeah, one week to opening day. Maybe we'll have a chance to talk again then, maybe right after opening day, something like that. But we will see. It's dismal as this year is going to be, not just in business practices of the White Sox, but as what happens on the field. It's still easy to say baseball, and baseball's fun. And I
Oh
think,
yeah. Oh
and I
yeah.
think they're
I'm
gonna. I think the one thing that just support gets, good D makes the game more watchable. Even if you're awful, even if you are losing almost all the time, good D is what is fun to watch. You can't really see the battle between the pit if you're in the park. You can't see the battle between the pitcher and the batter. You
right.
don't know what's happening there. But you can watch a guy make a great play or a terrible play. Uh, so I think that's really important. Now, whether and I think what they ought to do, they really need to sell tickets. Is one fan will be picked at random to play right field, but the Players Association may have some some negative feelings about that.
I think there's a deal that could be done there, though, to make that happen. And here's what I'll tell you. If the White Sox say we're going to pick a random right fielder, you just have to get a ticket. You and I are season ticket holders from here on out. I am getting my day in right field, and I hope you get yours too. Uh, but that would seal the deal right there. I'd be calling the ticket office right now. What's the lowest level of ticket you have to be able to play right field? And I'd buy 81 games. All right, y'all. Yes, baseball is back. Baseball is fun. We do love it. I will say I still do get excited when I see Crochet strike out Otani. All of a sudden, I'm texting my friends on the group thread. I'm changing my mind. We're not going to lose 115. We're going to win 109. It's the baseball does stir up that excitement in you. So enjoy this last week of spring training before it gets real next week. And we'll catch you next time on Sharing Socks.